Yeah, I think
Hello?
we are live.
Yeah. Today's session will be and the agenda for the session would be we'll be discussing about the entrepreneurial the ecosystem in India and our own startup with UpGrad. Okay, over to you, Mayank.
Hi, hello everyone. Just want to check how many guys are currently on. Just want to check how many of them, how many are online. Should I just start taking a question, Pooja, one by one? Do you have a specific question that I should start answering?
Yeah. 1 second, we'll do that. Yeah.
Just let me quickly start. Thank you very much for joining us on this Hangout session. I hope you guys can hear me well. If there's any challenge, any problem that you're facing, feel free to type in on the chat box. I think the objective of this sort of Hangout session was to sort of provide you with some clarity of thought, A, about the program, B, about your entrepreneurial journey. And I think if I can meet these two objectives, that will be a good use of our time. And there are certain questions that have already been sent to us, so I can answer those questions one by one. I'll let Pooja sort of drive those questions one by one so that one can sort of provide answers to those.
Yeah, sure. Mayank will do it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Mayank.
Right.
Hi everybody. Today we have Mayank Kumar, CEO and co-founder of UpGrad.com, with you. He will be talking on entrepreneurship, and we'll be starting the session in a second. Over to you, Mayank.
Yeah. No, so as I mentioned, everyone welcome in. I'll just take in question one by one. So if there are specific questions that you have, why don't you throw at me, and then I'll probably answer the.
Absolutely. I'll just do that in a second.
Yeah.
Mayank,
So
I
I don't
suppose
know
you.
so I
Uh,
have a set of questions, but I don't know who is currently online. So if you let me know who's online, then I can answer their specific questions.
okay, I'll just do that in a second then.
Okay, so then let me probably answer some of the question that we got. I think, guys, first of all of you guys who are on the platform, I think thank you for coming down and then sort of talking to us. As you know that, and as you are aware that this entire Hangout session is all about Startup with UpGrad program, which was our first program that we launched last November. And now we are moving on to our second cohort, which starts in the month of April, May. And I think a lot of you guys are interested in applying to the cohort starting in April, May. What I'll do in this particular discussion is provide you with answer some of the questions that you have raised internally. But before I just go on to doing that, I'll just give you a quick overview of what the program is. So Startup with UpGrad is essentially a 15-week long online program, largely focused towards providing clarity of thought to your entrepreneurial journey. As a lot of you guys may have already started up or are looking to start up, the program is largely geared towards providing answers to specific questions that you may have about your entrepreneurial journey, but more importantly, giving you more questions to think of, because ultimately, as you go through through your own sort of startup journey, you not only will have a certain specific set of questions that you need answers to, but there are many questions that you will never have an answer to. So I think the part of the program is sort of a discovery process during the program, and I think a lot of you will find value, will find use getting answers to your question, but also getting more questions to your sort of specific doubts that you may have. What I'll start off very quickly, and I'll sort of start off with the first question that I have with me, which is by Manish Upadhyay. I'm not too sure whether Manish is on the chat or not. I think the question that he has is, as an online marketer and product marketing guy, what are the key areas that I have to focus myself before I start up on my own? I think it's an important question to think of, because a lot of you will come with a prior understanding of certain areas or certain specific areas that you may be really good at. Some of you may have a very strong background in product, some of you may have a very strong background in marketing, sales, etc. But I think as you think of your entrepreneurial journey, there is a lot that goes beyond it. Specifically coming to Manish, I think he understands marketing and product marketing fairly well, but things around validating an idea, figuring out whether the idea is good, bad, ugly, thinking about how to build a team, who should be a co-founder, who should come at what point in time, doing your self-assessment, whether if you are good at as a marketer, can you be really good as an entrepreneur? Because in entrepreneurship, a lot of things are unknown. And what your self-assessment of those areas to get a clear sense that you are really good there to sort of to take up the entrepreneurial journey, building a team, finding a co-founder, thinking of funding, legal. I think all of those things have been structured in the program that allows you to have a very good understanding of what are the things that you will face as an entrepreneur. Yeah, so that was the answer to the first question that Manish had. I'll just summarize this thing. So as someone who's strong at marketing, you really need to have a very strong understanding of how to validate your idea, whether the idea is good or not, whether it is scalable, is it differentiated. How do you think of building a team, going out and sort of figuring out who's the right set of people that you need to work with. And lastly, understanding of funding and legal landscape, because as you set up your organization, there'll be a lot of funding and legal issues that you will have to face. And that's something that you will have to sort of get a good hang of. Should we move on to the second question, Anirudh?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think the next question that I'm going to pick up is a question that came from Prasanna Ganapa. He had a question that if I can provide on what investors look while pitching. And I think it's an important question, but I'll just sort of caution this question. Before I answer this question, I just want to start off with a caution, because I think for a lot of us, entrepreneurship becomes a lot about funding. Entrepreneurship becomes a lot about getting funded, and therefore funding, investors become always a top of the mind concern. But as you sort of take up your entrepreneurial journey, I think you have to think beyond funding as well. That said, I mean, that's a caution point that I wanted to make up. Now, coming to the question that Prasanna had as to what would an investor look at, the answer to that is it depends upon different stages of the entrepreneurial journey. At a very early stage, there are different things that investors look at. At a mid-stage, growth stage, a different set of things that investors look at. And then when you reach to a more mature phase, it's a very different set of things that investors look at. Let me answer for a lot of you guys, which is more relevant, is an early stage element, which is at a very, very early stage when you're starting up, what are the things that an investor will look at? I think three things which are very important. One is team, and the team that is working on the problem. What kind of people are working behind that problem is the first thing that everyone looks at. Two, is the idea in itself, how good is the idea? Who's sort of working on the idea is sort of what everyone looks at. I think the third thing which is very important is the scale of the opportunity. I think that's the third very, very important thing that a lot of investors look at, which they feel that, look, ultimately I'm funding you, and if I'm funding you and I cannot get $1 billion sort of market size, there's no point of, as an investor, funding you, because then I know that what you're working on is a subscale opportunity. So I think those three things that you always have to look at and should be really, really strong at. One is team, the second is idea, and the third one is the opportunity or the scale or the size of the market that you're working on. All right. So I'll move on to the next question, guys. If there's anything, please feel free to sort of drop in on the chat box, and I think as and when the question comes to me, I'll provide answers to those specific questions as well. There was a question that came up from me from Santosh Pericharan. I think the question was specifically related to the program. I think his question was, or his question is, hi, I wanted to know how does the program work and how can we apply it to our startup? I think it's a pertinent question for this particular hangout, and a quick overview of how this program works. I think the program, first of all, has been very carefully designed, taking you through different phases of your entrepreneurial journey, which takes you from an idea validation phase, which we call it phase 1, when you're really starting off. Phase 2 is when you start thinking of taking the company and growing the company, going out in the market, getting the first 100 customers, building a team, the challenges and pains related to. And then phase 3 of the program is largely focused on funding and legal. Now, and those are the sort of very theoretical concepts that you will go through as you sort of go through the program. But very importantly, the way the program has been designed, it follows the learn, experience, and apply. And it's important for you to understand what each of these 3 elements mean. Whenever we start a concept, let's say I'm talking about a concept on branding, and I will start off by saying that, look, brand comprises XYZ, and this is a framework in which you should think of brand. But I will not just, as a program, it just does not tell you the concept per se, but it will also talk to you about experience from other existing entrepreneurs who have gone through building their own brand. So that as an entrepreneur, when you're thinking that, look, I got the concept and I got the framework, but how exactly I would face the challenges on the ground is when the experience of a Zomato co-founder will come in, who will probably talk about how did they make a transition called a Zomato, and now after acquiring Urban Spoon, how they rebrand to Zomato. I think those experiences play a very, very important role. You sort of not commit this what critical mistake, or the third very critical element of the program, apply. You need to sort of apply context to the real life situation, and that becomes very, very important, because without that, I don't think so any one of you will find worth in the program that you're taking. In apply, what do I mean by that? I think thought of brand, and you learn the concepts of brand. When you went through the experience of other entrepreneurs, how did they build up their brand, you get a good sense of how should you go about building a brand. But at that point in time, we push you towards building a brand on your own, and sort of your thoughts on what your brand would stand for depending upon the experience. I think that allows you to apply the same learning to your own entrepreneurial venture idea. I think that's the pedagogy that we follow, that unless you apply, every week you keep on applying various aspects of your learning into what you have learned into your own venture idea. What it does is at the end of 15 weeks, you have 15 very critical questions that you may have about your venture answered through those application questions. And that becomes a backbone of what we call it as business plan tracker, that it builds up as a business plan. What's a brand, what you do with the brand, who's your co-founder, how should you think of the team, what the organization structure will look like, how your business plan will evolve, such that at the end of 15 weeks, you have a very clear sort of set of business plan document, a business plan concept note that you can take to an investor, that you can take to your friends, that you can take to anyone that you know of, and that becomes your business plan concept note. So a very strong business plan tracker is linked back to what you would be applying. And this is where you get personalized feedback from our teaching associates in the program. The third thing that I want to talk about is the personalized mentoring session. Each one of you get access to a certain amount of mentoring session. And as you sort of go through the mentoring session, you can ask specific questions about your own venture, which allows you to sort of improve upon your startup journey or entrepreneurial journey. And the fourth point that I will just sort of highlight and touch upon is this entire concept of business plan pitching that you will have to go through. And in this program, we have made provision that at the end of the program, you can actually go out and sit in front of investors and pitch to investors as well. So that business plan pitching session becomes very, very relevant for you, because if you have a working product, you can go out in the market and pitch in the market directly to potential investors. And that gives you more real-time feedback than anything else in that the program would have been provide. Yeah. So that's broadly the value proposition of the program. I hope I was able to answer, Santosh, your question. I think there's a question that came up, which is very interesting as well, by Kamal, which says, at what level of maturity should a business model be at the time a pitch for investment is made? See, again, ultimately, as an entrepreneur, you will be pitching throughout your journey. You will pitch today, you will pitch tomorrow, you will pitch day after, and every time the pitch will have a very different story. For, if I understand your question correctly, and if I'm presuming that you are at an early stage of your venture. At an early stage of your venture, there are three things, as I mentioned, which is very important. Or rather, let me talk about two things which will be most important for you to go to an investor. One is what team that you're working with, and what team you envisage that will be working on this problem. And two is some kind of an early stage working prototype that you need to show and demonstrate to an investor. And an investor will always look for a fact that, look, a paper plan is great, and the paper plan should cover team, idea, and opportunity. But show me what you are working on. Show me a beta version of the product. How does it look? How does it feel? So that I can touch and feel the product as well. So some kind of a prototype, a minimum viable product that you can take to the investor would be a good use of time that you can kind of go and pitch to an investor for a potential investment at an early stage of your venture. Yeah. So Kamal, I hope I'm able to sort of answer your question. I'll pick up another question that I think Anushri had. Anushri Agrawal had raised a question that if I'm already running a venture of my own, but wish to diversify into a completely new segment, unrelated to the current one, then will the course be of help? So again, a course-related question. So let me take a stab at answering this point. So Anushri, if you're already running a venture and you want to sort of diversify, the first question that I will have for you is, are you shutting off your existing venture and then moving on to the new venture, or is the new venture an offshoot of your existing venture? And that's the thing that you need to be very clear about, that whether you're diversifying into a new segment, letting go of your existing segment or not. Now, coming back to, in either scenario, coming back to the question that how will this program help, I think a couple of macro points I can raise in which the program will sort of go about helping you out. I think the first one is, as you start thinking about a new idea, and entrepreneurship is a lot about unlearning what you already know. As you sort of start thinking of a new idea, how do you, from a first principle basis, think of coming out with sort of the idea and validation of that particular idea? I think the part of the program which I mentioned will focus on helping you validate the idea in a lot more detail. Is the idea scalable? Is the idea differentiated? Is the idea monetizable to start with? And I think that's something that we'll focus a lot on in the first couple of weeks of the program, or the first 4 or 5 weeks of the program. Bringing in a lot more frameworks, giving you a lot more experience of other entrepreneurs. Two, it will also sort of come out thinking that, look, it's a new idea that you're starting. So whatever learning that you had from the first venture will be applicable, but from a first principle basis, how do you think of growth into your own venture? How do you get the first 100 customers? How do you go about building your own team? How do you figure out how the product should look like? The new product will have a very different way of looking at in the market, because it may be a completely different diversification, as you mentioned, into a completely new segment. I think that from a first principle basis, you will be able to figure out what that product will look like, what the features will look like, and then also parallelly the program will help you think in funding and legal aspects. So I think on a net basis, Anushri, this will be a program that will not just fine-tune, help you fine-tune your idea as you go about your entrepreneurial journey, but at the same time, it will allow you to be able to learn from experience of many more entrepreneurs in the program. Further, the program will provide you with personalized mentoring network session where you can go to a mentor and raise questions and get answers to questions specific to your own venture. The next one is sort of you get personalized feedback to all your own sort of entrepreneurial journey questions because you're working on a business plan tracker for a new venture, and there's a team at UpGrad sitting and providing you with personalized feedback. And I think very, very important part is at the end of the venture, we provide a demo day wherein you can go about and pitch your venture idea to a potential jury of investors, wherein sort of you may potentially end up getting funded as well. There are some specific questions I will not answer, but I'll just acknowledge the question that was raised. There was a question. He said that starting with an e-commerce website should be registered as a proprietorship, private, limited, or LLP. It is very, very well covered in the program by reputed lawyers who have come to the platform and who have spoken about which of these 3 or 4 sort of venture limited is sort of more useful for an early stage company. I have my own personal preferences and my own personal biases. I think as when you're starting up, I think proprietorship is the best thing that comes to your mind, that it's the easiest, it's the least hassle sort of area of setting up the organization. But ultimately, if you're thinking of in a long-term scale, you should focus on creating your own sort of private limited venture, because I think a lot of issues get sorted out next time when you get funded or you're looking at funding. A private limited has got most of the thing already sorted out from the basis in which it has been structured. So I always advise any young startup to look at private limited route to set up the venture. Proprietorship in LLP looks very exciting and interesting, but I think they come with their own sort of cons, which I think as you go through the program, you will get to learn a lot more about it. Yeah. Sorry, so there were a couple of questions that I had from Nivedita, and I'll answer both of them one by one. Let me just read out the question that she has mentioned. Will the investor we could pitch to be suggested by you guys? So I think on that, and I think she has a follow-up question on that, for example, something like Shark Tank. So Nivedita, on that point, we are working with Let's Venture, which is one of India's largest angel investor network available. We are working with other VC funds like Bloom, Bertelsmann, Unilaser, so on and so forth, who help and provide sort of right guidance in terms of the funding. So we will provide you with the right set of individuals to reach out to, because at the stage where you will be, you will sort of reach out, you will sort of looking at reaching out to angel investors. So I think there is a set of angel investors we provide to. Also, when it comes to the pitch day, we will put you in touch with those investors where you can go out and pitch on your own and see whether the investors really appreciate what you're bringing to the table or not. So in some form or fashion, we will guide you to the right direction, and then it is up to us whether the pitch gets accepted or not. Second, we are also looking at some kind of a concept like Shark Tank, but in an online version, but that will sort of come in later, and when it comes, we will invite all our students to participate in that particular sort of Shark Tank sort of format. The question that you have also asked, Nivedita, is will we get actual legal and lawyer references, people we could actually use in our domain? So Nivedita, on that, we are sort of working with creating a list of reference lawyers so that we can curate those for you guys. Although as of now, at this stage of the program, we do not have a list of all the lawyers and the legal experts referenced out, accountants, CAs, etc. But we are building towards that. The set of people who have come and lectured on our platform are definitely very, very useful for you to go and meet them. So guys who are working in Shadu Ramalchandas, Nishit Desai, etc., who have a very clear startup function or a startup domain where you can go and sort of seek help from those individuals, bigger law firms also. But we'll put together and curate a list of individual lawyers and individual chartered accountant and financial advisor who can provide you with some support and assistance as you go about in your entrepreneurial journey. All right, I think I hope I have answered your question, Nivedita. You also raised a question earlier, which I just wanted to sort of touch upon, wherein you said that what's the scope of getting funding in your category, which is on personal care product. I will not get too much specific into whether it's feasible for your idea or not, because a lot depends upon your idea itself. But very quickly, I just wanted to touch upon a couple of companies which are in personal health, personal sort of care related services, but not necessarily personal care, product, cosmetics, etc., which are getting funded. I think there's some interesting names that are there in the market on the personal consumable space which are getting funded. So it's not all about online programs or the online marketplaces. There are interesting companies like Hector Beverages, which is one of the largest, sort of came up very recently, has scaled up very sort of well. Some folks who are doing something in the raw pastry space, providing sort of health juices, they've also got funded. So a lot of interesting stuff happening there. But what I would let you know is that a lot more stuff really happens in the offline space, not necessarily in the online space, which do not get very well covered. So it's important that you keep an eye out as to what are the new things that are happening in that space. But definitely, if the idea is great, the team backing it is good, and you have a large opportunity to play after. There's definitely a lot of scope in the personal healthcare space as well. Yeah. There's another question that came up from Kamal Boma Kanti. Let me pick up that because it's an interesting question that he's asking. He raised at what time we can say that a business model is complete, or at least in a right stage to start or kick off. Um, I think on the business model aspect, I think a theoretical answer to this is never. I think your business model is always evolving. You're finding new ways in which to get customers, new ways to monetize, new ways to sort of get the right suppliers. But there is an exercise that you will go through as part of the program, wherein you will go through an entire business model canvas exercise, in which you will have to work on a business model canvas that allows you to answer some of the questions that you may not have thought of earlier. What's your supplier, who your buyers are, how do you go about monetizing it, who the competition is in the market, and all of those things will help you evolve a business model concept note. And that will become a very, very sort of critical part of your aspect. We provide a very strong handholding, a very strong personalized support to all sort of individuals as you sort of build your business plan model canvas, in terms of where exactly you're lagging behind, where exactly you sort of need to add more. So I think that's something that as part of the program we are covering, and it will be a useful exercise for all of you to go through, because it just provides a lot more clarity. I think a lot of things we have never thought of while starting up. That business plan canvas does provide you with strong clarity of thought in that context. Yep. Let me pick up another question. So there's a question which Ramachandra raised, which said, will the session be taken by founders mentioned on the UpGrad page, or only case studies from the journey? So I think the answer is not very necessary that the founder will be taking the session and someone else will not be, because I think it's like a more storyline basis in which sometimes a founder come in, and sometimes sometimes the founders come in. And just give me 1 second. I'm just hearing that the network maybe, the video may have hung, I guess. Yep. If it's all good, can you guys hear me well? Yeah, so I'll be continue with the question that I think Ramachandra had about, will it be led by founders, or will it be only case studies from the journey? I think it's a combination of both. Sorry, just give me a second. I think there's some problem with the video. So I'm just going to sort of pause myself and I'll come back in like 2 minutes time. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So, all right, guys. So I'll just so to question Ramachandra, I think there are a lot of case study founders examples. So bringing on what are the challenges that they faced when venture, which is useful for a lot of you guys to sort of take away. But a lot of time when any concept is being brought in by industry lecturer and industry speakers, it's the founders who go about validating or disproving what the faculty member is saying, such that the experience is a lot more seamless rather than saying, here's founder, here's lecturer, and here's sort of founders again. So it's a lot of sort of proper mix match of what the founder is saying and what the faculty members are talking about. The second one that I want to touch upon there, Ramchandra, is that these sessions are also taken a lot by industry leaders who are really rock solid in their own domain. So someone who has been doing marketing for the last 5 to 10 years comes and talks to you about marketing, because a founder may not know about digital marketing as much as someone who is doing digital marketing on a day in and day out basis. When it comes to sort of building a product, we bring in the best in class product expert to come and deliver those sort of concepts to you, because again, a founder may not have built the product completely. He may have built it to the MVP level and then left it for the team to pick up. So wherever we feel the founder should come and sort of explain and share their experiences, we bring in the founders. In areas, but a lot of times that you would see founders coming in case studies, sharing their examples, and you will have to live the life of a founder, go through the journey, and then sort of live in the same situation as the founder lived when they were sort of going about their own entrepreneurial journey. Yeah. Let me just pick up another question. Manish had a question which is similar to what I had answered earlier, but I'll just pick up this very quickly, that he's running a non-tech service-based venture, but most of the funding happens in a tech-based venture. So is this something that he's not doing correct, and will he get funded, and whether this is a good opportunity for him to go after or not? So I think, Manish, honestly, there are two parts to it. One is that there are a lot of non-tech venture that get funded. It's just that we don't get to hear about them because media is not covered. That's part one of it. Part two, which is equally important, is that build your sort of services business. There are a lot of challenges to scale, and that's where technology comes and helps you improve the quality of services. For example, ultimately, if you think of Uber is a taxi service company. It's still in a services business, but it has leveraged technology to ensure that scalability reaches the next level. So even as you guys start going through your own sort of services business, which may be offline in nature, leveraging technology to scale it up becomes very, very useful aspect as you start thinking of where does tech coming. And I think that allows VCs or investors to get comfort that, look, boss, this guy knows tech, this guy is using technology to leverage the scale, and that's the reason why I'll sort of fund you and I'll give you a better valuation, etc. Yep. I think just moving on to the next question. Mohit Rao had a question which he said that he's in a mind reading shows for corporate, and will this course be useful for him or not? I think, Mohit, on that question, on that sort of my answer is that yes, definitely it will be useful. I think from a couple of things, because which I can think right away, and hopefully this course will help you think through those concepts in a lot more detail. First one is, if you are in a mind reading business, it's going to be very, very difficult to scale up. So you need to think about how do you structure the process, how do you sort of how do you structure a process, how do you sort of figure out and leverage technology to sort of scale it up very, very sort of massively. And that's going to be a very, very important part of it. You may have started with Mind Radio, which is brilliant, because you should start with something which is very, very focused. But as you sort of start scaling it up, you may want to sort of move on adjacent areas beyond sort of just being focused on mind reading. For example, Google started with just search, but now they have Gmail, they have Google Documents, they have HoloLens, or sorry, Google virtual reality sort of elements, etc. They're moving on to cars, maps, etc. So you start expanding beyond that. I think this program will help you think through a structured manner. How should you go beyond just doing mind reading to something beyond that and scale it up significantly? The second area is how do you think of significant differentiation in this business? Because a lot of elements in this business is easy to replicate. If I can do a mind reading thing, someone else can also do it. Maybe you have a secret sauce in which you do it much better, but someone very difficult for you to differentiate. Those are the questions that this program will push you towards. That boss, how do I ensure I become more scalable? How do I ensure I can monetize it better? How do I ensure I can sort of differentiate significantly in the market? Yeah. I have a question coming from Gaurav Pandey. He said, apart from team idea scalability, on what attributes are you going to evaluate a business plan? From our side, I think we will put weightages to team idea scalability because this will be an important part of what the business plan will be. I think very, very important part of it and very difficult to sort of quantify it. I think it's less about numbers, how big you can become, what scale you can achieve. It's just the clarity at which you have created the business plan. And I know it's very, very vague and it's very difficult for me to quantify what do you mean. I cannot tell you that it's for clarity level 9 is what will make it. But that clarity becomes very, very important. I've gone through many, many business plan in my sort of career. Once you see a business plan and you see very clearly one message being always sort of bounced and hammered to you, you know that this founder has really thought about his business idea. The passion and the clarity comes out very clearly in each and every slide that you create on the business plan. How do you think of the numbers? Why do you think this number will be this? You as a founder having very good sense of how well structured and how sort of convincing your business plan is, and it will come out very clearly as you sort of create the business plan and post the business plan. Even a one round of discussion for 15 minutes or so will allow us to sort of get that clarity very, very, very neatly. So that's how, at least at an UpGrad level, we will sort of go about doing it. There's a team of people who sit down, review the business plan, provide them those relevant sort of marks, normalize those marks, and then send it across to an external set of panel members who will choose the right business plan that will be sort of presented to the potential investor. Internally, for us to sort of, how do we push you to sort of improve upon your business plan? I think it all boils down to clarity. And I have a very simple test for this, Gaurav, which is, till you cannot explain your business or your business plan to your grandmother, you have not cracked the problem. So it has to be so simple that even I, who has no idea who have no idea about what your business plan is going to be, is able to understand and absorb what you're working towards, is when I will say that your business plan is sort of reaching to the level in which it should be. Yeah. I'm going to pick up this next question that I think Ravi had raised. How do Flipkart, Amazon systemize the taxation as billing is done from the supplier to customer most of the times, and payment is completely received by the marketplace, and then I can give it to the supplier? Tactical work is a lot more that goes behind it, and I think you require to sit down in a longer session to answer that question. What Amazon and Flipkart do. And Amazon and Flipkart have put in a very strong systems in place. There's a team that works on those sellers, and each and every transaction is think off for a second. So I don't know whether you guys can hear me well or not, but let me continue. There's a lot more that goes in this sort of area in terms of structuring, not just between supplier and buyers, but also between various entities within the value chain of marketplace and of e-commerce companies, be it third-party logistics, so on and so forth. So it's a complicated thing, but to very simplistically answer your question, there's a system that each one of them, the product that each one of them have built, and you should go out and check out that product. It's quite complicated. But as you scale up, it becomes a very, very important part that allows you to stay on the right side of the law and not commit the mistakes that others would be committing by sort of letting go of one kind of taxation over another. So yeah, I think I have pretty much gone through most of the question. Let me sort of pick up one more, which I had from Ashish. I think Ashish had a question: is this program helpful in helping me manage my path lab? I think absolutely, a lot relevant. I think one of the things that you will realize in a path lab business, it's a very location dependent business. So there's a lot of focus on sort of thinking about center-based businesses and how center-based businesses should evolve. The fundamental concept, or rather let me tell you that fundamentally any entrepreneurial journey has got very similar features. How do you think of an idea? How do you scale up an idea? The challenge that you face. What the program does is provide you with the right clarity for thinking about these specific business problem. Contextualizing to your own venture becomes easier after that. So I think that's what the program focuses on, at least taking you through the journey, providing you with the clarity of thought. And with that clarity of thought, you can potentially apply the same learning to various situations. That today you are running one business, tomorrow you may be running another business. Where you can get very good input and help is through the mentoring session, where you can get right answers to specific question to your own venture idea, either through business plan tracker or the mentoring that you'll be working on. So that's how I would look at how the program could potentially help you out in managing your own sort of path lab business. So guys, I think that's all the question that I had internally with me. I hope I'm able to provide answers to some of the questions that have been raised. If I have missed anything specific, I'm sorry, those questions on my screen. It may have got, and somehow it hasn't reached to me so far. At the end, I just want to talk about a couple of things. And I can share my experience of not just being an investor, but also being an entrepreneur now. Is that as you start getting into your entrepreneurial journey, you do come in this journey with a lot of thoughts that you have thought through each and every problem, what you want to solve, what you want to work on, how do you want to sort of scale up, and where do you see your venture going forward. But I think it's very, very important for you as an aspiring entrepreneur, as an existing entrepreneur, to hear and listen to experience of many other entrepreneurs successful. Learn from the mistakes, learn from the challenges that they have, such that you do not commit the same mistakes that those guys have committed earlier. It's very important to know what they have done well, so that you can avoid doing something other than that in order to sort of achieve the success that they have achieved. That's part one of giving you enough experiences that allows you to scale up and not commit this committed. The second thing that the program for application of those learning concepts to your own venture idea. I think I cannot overemphasize the point that if you do not from the program, you may not end up getting the maximum out of the program. If you want the maximum out of the program, sit down at the end of each lecture module, which may not be more than 3 to 5 minutes long, to think about, if this is what has been said in this lecture, how does it apply back to my own venture idea? Learning to your own context will allow you to sort of improve and fine-tune your idea significantly. Third, this program is carefully designed, not just as part of the entrepreneurs that come in, the application, the pedagogy that we have built in, but very important, the feedback through the entire sort of program itself. You get personalized feedback from our teaching associates on your business plan and a business plan tracker. which allows you to sort of fine-tune them and sort of keep on improving upon that as we go about doing it. You also get a session, a mentoring session with various industry experts who come and talk about their experiences, share them with you. You get answers to specific doubts that you may have. And third, at the end of the program, you get access to and sort of demo day where you can talk and sort of run your program through potential investors and even get funded at the end of the day. I think all these programs is what all this a program that will help you get clarity to an entrepreneurial venture, and that's what the objective is of this that we always talk about is clarity and thought achieved its objective. With that, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining on this Hangout session. Apologies for sort of at times dropping off from the call and dropping off from the session. Sometimes technology is not the best sort of support when it comes to tech-enabled businesses. But thank you very much for coming down and taking our time to sort of hear us out. Any feedback, please drop us a note to and provide you sort of the answer. If you have any questions related to how the program is run, reach out to your counselors. They are more than happy to the platform so that you're aware as to what you're getting into, that you have. But thank you very much again for coming to this Hangout sessions. And I wish to sort of see you, a lot of you guys applying, post which we will sort of come out with our shortlist and the payment deadline. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks a lot for joining this Hangout session.